Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guest, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Wassilios Lolas, Global Vice President and also Head of the Center of Excellence for SAP Signavio. So welcome, Wassilios. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into SAP Signavio, looking at what it is and how you can get the most from it. So just before we get into that, we've got our UK&I Connect conference coming up soon. And that got me thinking about walk-on music that's played when people come on the stage to give keynote addresses, etc. So, Wassilios, what track would you choose and why? And just while you think about that, I was giving this one a little thought myself, and it's a difficult one for me. And as soon as I start thinking about walk-on music or music to an aisle, if you like, I'm thinking about what would my funeral music be rather than walking onto the stage. Just for instance, my funeral music, I think, would have to be Young at Heart by the Bluebells. So that's how I like to think about myself, even though I am getting on now. But walk-on music, I'd probably might have to go with Mr. Brightside by the Killers as, if you like, coming out of my cage, getting on the stage, and it's also an anthem that I absolutely love. So, Wassilios, what's yours?
So thank you for that question, which took me by surprise, I must admit. Intuitively, when I think of walk-on music, I think of Mozart's Wedding March, which you hear typically when a couple gets into the church. Now, I thought this was totally inappropriate, but on a second thought, I thought it might be a little bit of appropriate because we're talking about SAP Signavio, which is a kind of a marriage, actually, which happened about 1.5 years ago, and which will hopefully, and I'm even convinced of this, bring an upspring of lots of benefits and value for our joint customers going forward.
Very good. Thank you. Let's hope it's a long marriage as well then.
Yeah.
And while we're on that subject, obviously, yes, SAP acquired SAP Signavio last year. It would be great, Wassilios, if you could just give us a top-level overview of what it is and how it can benefit SAP customers.
Absolutely. So the reason for SAP to acquire Signavio was born about 2 years ago out of the understanding that our customers are transforming, both from a business-wise and IT-wise, and are transforming, as every one of us experiences, sometimes even faster and in a more unpredictable way than any one of us had foreseen or expected, be it via COVID, be it via the supply chain challenges that we have, be it via the war that unfortunately is happening at the moment in Europe. From our perspective, this means that the processes on which the companies are running or the organizations are running need to be understood, need to be discussed, very often streamlined, improved, completely changed and transformed in some cases. And this requires not only an understanding of the current processes and the current process performance, but also the ability to get the buy-in from the organization, get the buy-in of the people who will be impacted by the change. And at the end, also the ability to constantly monitor these processes in order to be ready to do upcoming changes. Looking around in the market, and when we compared this to our own capabilities that we have in SAP, we have, I believe, very good software to execute processes. We also have the ability to analyze processes to some extent. But what we were missing was mainly three things. Number one, we were missing the ability to analyze processes which were not through SAP systems. Secondly, we were missing the change management aspects, the ability to model processes, but also to collaborate, to give the companies the opportunity to collaborate with their stakeholders within the company and also their partners in redesigning the processes. And thirdly, we were missing the possibility to include the customer's view, the customer experience, or the employee experience, the journey into all this. So with Qualtrics, we had the possibility to measure, but we were missing or lacking the possibility to create the journeys and to combine this with processes. And when we looked around, the only vendor that we saw that was complementing our own offering with the aim of supporting, accelerating the transformation was Signavio, which luckily is based in Berlin. One of the research centers of SAP is in Potsdam, which is next to Berlin. Gero Decker, who is one of the founders of Signavio, had written his PhD at the Hasso-Plattner Institute in Potsdam. So there was already some connection available, plus the fact that SAP at the time was Signavio's biggest customer. We were using the entire suite with tens of thousands of users. So jokingly, one could say the only possibility to buy more from Signavio was to buy the entire company, which is what we did. Yeah.
Thank you. And so what is the overarching vision for SAP Signavio?
The overarching vision is to help our customers transform fast and at scale. Yeah? And these are, I believe, three key elements to transform their business processes fast and at scale. So what do we mean with this? On the one side, we give our customers the possibility to get a very fast insights, to reduce the time it takes to understand how are my business processes running today, and to get the recommendations on how to do better. Yeah? So one thing is very fast insights coupled with recommendations on how to do better. But that's only one part of the equation. Once you know why you have to do something and what you have to do, you actually need to go to the change, to do it, to the adoption. So faster time to adopt is the second big mantra of SAP Signavio, helping our customers to accelerate the change. And here one key element is the inclusion, the collaboration with all the people who are impacted by the change. And then the virtuous circle starts again, because then once you have implemented the change and the adoption in the organization, the analysis starts again, etc. And so you can start at any point in the circle, but these are two of the core elements.
So if we kind of look at that, and I look back across, if you like, my years and talking to SAP customers and the challenges they've faced, and I'm looking at SAP's journey to S/4HANA at the moment as well. And so when they're coming from an on-premise environment, from perhaps a system that has been heavily customized to make it fit with the business processes of the customer, rather than perhaps as if you look at the cloud elements, the customer changing the business processes to fit with the system. Is that what Signavio can help understand? Where are we with our business processes? Can it help cut down on the requirement for those customizations, if you like, because it helps you alter your processes and match them with the system?
Well, it is a little bit, as you said, you can either adopt the processes to the system or the system to the processes. And looking back, it's very often a combination of both. If you look at how processes are running through systems today, and you identify inefficiencies and you ask yourself, but why are you doing this? Yeah, the answer is because we have been doing this for 15 years. And when you go back in history, you see that a process has been adopted in a certain way because of technical limitations that were there 15 years ago. You had to find a workaround. And the workaround is still there, although the technical limitations are not there. And that's not the only reason, right? This is sometimes, especially for processes which constitute a competitive advantage for that company. Yeah, you cannot go to the standard because there is no standard. Yeah? On the other side, there are so many processes that are totally standard where you as a company cannot have a competitive advantage. You're right. You can only make it worse. Yeah, and there it merits to go to a standard, and this is what we see with our customers. So where is it that SAP Signavio can help? On the one side, to give you an understanding of where are your processes running well or less well today. And when I say well, I mean errors, reworks, exceptions, etc. But I also mean variance. Yeah. Recently, I had a customer. We looked into the order to cash process. We analyzed. I mean, they had about 700,000 orders that we looked at, and we saw over 80,000 different variants of how to run these orders. Some of them have a good reason, others are totally useless. So that's the one part, the understanding. Secondly, what is the best way to do it? And here you either take the best practices from SAP. Yeah? So you say, I don't care how I did it in the past because it's so old, so customers, let me look at the best practice from SAP and implement it. Or maybe you have your own internal best practice and you want to roll out this best practice to others. Let me give you an example. You have 10 warehouses. All the warehouses are supposed to do the same thing. Yeah? However, you see that one warehouse is faster, needs less people, has less errors, higher customer satisfaction, etc. And you will want to understand, how is this one warehouse working? And can I replicate this way of working to the other 9 as well? Yeah, so that's your internal best practice. That's the second possibility. When it comes to the executing the change, yeah, you need to discuss with the other warehouses. Yeah, hey, here's the best practice which came from internally, or here's the best practice that came from SAP. How does it fit to the way you're working today? And if you are not working according to the best practice, SAP best practice or internal best practice, maybe there are very good reasons, yeah, why you cannot work because of tax reasons, legal regulations. Your machines do not allow you. Having the possibility to discuss this in an easy way will lower the resistance to change, and at the same time, maybe even surface better results. And this is what SAP Signavio does. We help you with the analysis, we help you with the best practices, and we help you with the conversation that you have with the various stakeholders.
So, okay, and looking at that, there's obviously lots of different processes and organizations, and obviously the technology that organizations use is sometimes can only be as good as the processes supporting it, so to speak. And what are some of the common business process challenges organizations face today? You mentioned their order to cash. What are the other processes, challenges that you're seeing in customer organizations?
So let me first say one thing, which is about what can be done or analyzed. SAP Signavio per se is system agnostic. So what do I mean with this? I mean that you can analyze processes that run through a certain system, and as long as this system has a database with tables and a few characteristics, we can analyze it. Now, of course, if this system is an SAP system, we are much faster, yeah, because we have the accelerators, we have the connectors, but it's not limited to SAP systems only. And this, again, was one of the reasons to buy Signavio, because whether we like it or not, no company is a pure SAP shop. Yeah, every company has processes which also run through non-SAP systems. Now, what we see as a typical challenge, or as typical challenges, is we speak to managers And they very often tell us, I have a gut feeling where things are running well or not so well. Yeah, but I need the data. I need the facts. Yeah. So this is the one thing. So we can provide them with the facts. Secondly, we hear managers who say, I know how we are doing this, but I'm not sure this is the best possible way. Yeah. Or even worse, they tell us, we have customized our system so much over the 20 last years. Yeah, I know this is not the best way. Show me how others are doing this. And also show me, benchmark me, please. Yeah, give me the performance of the others. Talking about benchmarks, this could also be internal benchmarking. As I said before, one in warehouse and the other 9. Yeah? And the other thing that we hear, less clearly maybe, but if you talk to experienced project managers, you hear this all the time. The amount of projects which are over time, over budget, or out of scope, this has many, many reasons. One reason, however, especially in this change, is the lack of buy-in or the resistance by the organization. Yeah? And I think all of us have been in situations where you, for example, try to roll out a global template and the colleague tells you, you know what, your template works everywhere in the world, but not in my country. Yeah, it works in every warehouse, but not in mine. Yeah, and again, there may be good reasons for this, but if you give these people the possibility, number one, to understand why to change, and secondly, to collaborate and to contribute, and to have a discussion about, let's say, the valid arguments and the non-valid arguments, and maybe ideas for improvement, this is very powerful. And if you then go one step further and think about any merger, any acquisition, or any new employee that comes on board, yeah, how are things working here? I'm new. Yeah? Show me what my task is. Give me all the trainings. Let me find it on one place, but also give me the understanding of what happens before my task and after my task. Give me this transparency. This is one of the things that we hear when it comes to accelerating an onboarding or accelerating a change. Mm-hmm. Last point, a trend that we see coming up more and more now is really the customer journey, the employee journey, being able to understand how your customers are experiencing the interaction with your company and map this to the underlying processes. Yeah. If you have time, I can give an example, right? So think of customers who are changing their telecoms provider or who are changing their utilities provider. Yeah, in days like today, yeah, where the costs are skyrocketing. Yeah, what we found out, just to give you an example, is I changed the provider and I received my first invoice. Yeah, this first invoice is a very important point because this is the invoice that I will analyze very profoundly to compare it against my old provider. Did I make the right choice or not? Yeah. As a telecoms provider, I would recommend to treat this first invoice not like the other 100,000 invoices that you write every day. Yeah. Put special attention on it and being able to map this customer journey, yeah, against your underlying operations, maybe change the operations just for this one invoice, yeah? Or change your operation when it comes to sending out the access point or modem, as we used to call it in the old days. Having this visibility, how does your customer experience the interaction with you, and what is causing a good or bad interaction looking at your processes? This is something that is coming more and more, and where I would like to claim that SAP Signavio is a forerunner in bringing experience management, journey management, and the operations together.
Thank you. And so looking at that, what you're saying really is that plugging Signavio into an organization, if you like, it looks at everything, every process across the whole organization, no matter what system is in use.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Or even manual things. You can add in the process description, you can add manual activities, which of course are not captured by a system, but typically when you look at the process flows, you will see gaps. Yeah. And then you talk to the people on the ground and they will tell you, yes, because we do something manual. Yeah.
And so when you're talking to organizations and they're looking at Signavio, do you find that organizations have visibility into all of their business processes, or just some, or maybe a high level idea, but not detailed visibility? What are you seeing?
There is no general answer to this question. We see organizations which are very mature already on their reporting, on their process analysis, right? These organizations very often, they've invested a lot of time and effort into building business intelligence systems, yeah, and there would say, hey, we can help you because there's a lot coming out of the box already. We also see organizations which are very process mature. They have process offices, process transformation offices, or BPM, business process management offices. That's the one thing. And those that do have these type of transformation or BPM offices very often are already past Signavio customers, yeah, because if you want to go into modeling, and also Signavio has been the top player already in the market before. On the other side of the spectrum, you have companies which do not have this type of visibility, right? So they look at individual operational factors, but do not necessarily have the capability and the visibility to do, let's say, a root cause analysis if they see a high amount of scrap to understand where this comes from, and do not necessarily drive the transformation in their organization in an organized way, that maybe do not have a culture of constant and continuous improvement. Yeah? And these are discussions that we're having with customers today who also require a mind shift. Yeah? If you talk about continuous improvement and continuous change, this requires also a mindset of transparency. Yeah? Something has gone wrong. I am willing to surface this and to change versus, no, I'm going to cover this here in my department. Mm-hmm. So again, there's all sorts of customers and of companies that you see. And we are serving both those who are very, very mature and very, very advanced, as well as those who are just beginning. One common thread, however, is with SAP Signavio, you're bridging a gap, if there is one, between business and IT. This is something that is perceived as very, very important, both from the IT side and the business side. All of a sudden, you have a common taxonomy, a common language. You look at the same thing and you look at the process, both from the business side and from the IT side, from the system side, if you like. Yeah, and having this visibility, and again, the possibility to interact and document all the interaction on one platform is extremely helpful.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting because, over the years, we've often highlighted the challenges of the collaboration, if you like, between business and IT. And as we move into the world of cloud, that becomes more and more, if you like, important to a business, that there is very close insight, collaboration and relationship between business and IT. So that's interesting that obviously Signavio helps bridge that gap too.
Hi, we're the UK and Ireland SAP user group. Did you know we're a fiercely independent not-for-profit? Did you know we're a vibrant community of over 6,500 SAP users? And did you know we help each other by sharing resources, championing education, and influencing SAP's future development? Well, you do now. If you'd like to get the most from your SAP investments and be in the know, visit our website, sapusers.org/pod. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And just going back to something I mentioned earlier around, if you like, customers' journey to S4HANA, we're talking about transformation. SAP would say, if you like, the business and the digital transformation is digitizing the core, which is S4HANA from SAP's perspective. And I mentioned customizations, etc., that customers have potentially built up over the years. So how can SAP Signavio help organizations with that part of their digital transformation, their move to S4HANA?
I must make a confession. I'm not a friend of the term digitizing the core, and here's why. Yeah, if you think of an S4HANA transformation, abstractly speaking, you have three possibilities. The one extreme is copy-paste. Yeah, so you say lift and shift. I continue doing what I've been doing and in the same way that I've been doing it, but on a new technical platform. Yeah? The other extreme is a greenfield. Yeah? I don't care how it was before. Yeah? I will go to the standard, whatever the standard is. So in that second case, I will be adjusting the processes to the system under the assumption that S4HANA gives me the best one, which, by the way, works perfectly for standard processes. For those that are differentiating, you need to make a case-by-case decision, and this is the middle ground. This is the brown field, so to say. Yeah. The mother of all questions is, where will I go brownfield? Where will I go greenfield? Where will I do lift and shift? Yeah? For which processes? For which data? For which subsidiaries? In which speed, etc.? Here comes Signavio. Yeah? Giving you the visibility of what needs to change and does not need to change. And especially and the possibility to discuss this. Especially if you say, I'm going greenfield, completely greenfield or parts of the organization greenfield. It means that your people who have been working in a certain way until yesterday will work in a different way tomorrow. And you need to get their buy-in. You need to train and educate them. You need to help them. You need to give them the visibility. This is where SAP Signavio helps, as well as I said before, provide you with the best practices and the best practice content, and the possibility quite easily to make the adjustments on the business process side. And thanks to the interaction that we have and the connection that we have on the one side to Solution Manager or Cloud ILM, you do the translation of the business processes into technical configurations, and through the connections that we have, for example, with LeanIX, which is an enterprise architecture platform, you also have your translation into your overall IT landscape and enterprise infrastructure. So this is why I said before this collaboration and the exchange between business and IT gets greatly facilitated, because business looks at the business process level, IT looks at the configuration at the enterprise architecture level, and creating this transparency and the possibility to interact getting all the content, the best practices, the benchmarks, the performance indicators is very helpful in scoping, deciding what to do in the context of the transformation, creating the transparency in terms of doing the transformation, having lots of recommendations, both on the technical side and on the process side, and then afterwards, once you are on S4, continuing with the continuous monitoring and optimization.
Thank you. So your advice, well, I'm guessing it would be, of course, but your advice would be to get Signavio in early at the scoping stage, or even beforehand, to understand the scope of the journey that you're going on to and the best way to fulfill it.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm totally convinced of this. And by the way, we are working with consulting companies, with our partners, in giving them SAP Signavio already at the very, very early phases. So before any implementation project starts, but when they are in the scoping, in order to facilitate exactly the type of discussion that I just described.
Okay.
And again, if I may, it doesn't have to be the partner only. It can also come. We see mature customers who do have that expertise in-house. As I said, those that have a transformation office, a BPM office, doing a big part of that work already internally themselves. Yeah, so we have the offering through the partners, but we also see mature customers who are doing that themselves.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you. And just obviously, one of the key pathways to S/4HANA, if you like, especially if we're looking at the private cloud, etc., is SAP, Rise with SAP. And I believe, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but Signavio forms part of SAP's Rise offering.
Correct. So there is a starter pack included in Rise. This starter pack contains 3 components out of the SAP Signavio portfolio, and it's the 3 components which help you getting started. That's why the starter pack. Component number 1 is the so-called Process Insights, SAP Signavio Process Insights. This is a cloud-based plug-and-play solution. You connect this to your ECC system, and you get visibility into about 50 processes and up to 900 process performance indicators. So this very, very quickly helps you to understand where you stand today with the processes that run through your ECC. When I say quickly, I mean 15 minutes, 14 minutes. Yeah. Wow. So we have made that connection, and there was a live in one of the events of SAP Signavio in the United States last month in September. We actually had a customer who live on stage connected his ECC system. Sorry, in this case it was S4. It works on ECC and S4 to Process Insights, and saw the first results within minutes. So that's the one component. Process Insights does not only provide you the insights into your process performance, but also recommendations, technical recommendations of how to fix broken processes. You get very detailed instructions about how to do what, fix master data, fix archiving, just example, automation, as well as more strategic recommendations about SAP functionality that can help you run a certain process or a certain part of a process better. Yeah? And this is important because in the context of your project, it will allow you to prepare yourself for the transition to S4, prepare the perfect route, clean up that you can do already in your ECC system. And on the other side, give you a tailored recommendation or insight into how the processes should look like in the future, according to SAP's recommendation. Now, if you want to discuss with the impacted business units these recommendations from SAP and how the processes should look like or could look like according to the SAP best practice, you need the 2 other components from the starter pack. One component is the Process Manager, which is a process modeling tool. And into the Process Manager, you would upload the relevant best practices so that you can visualize them. And the other component is the so-called Collaboration Hub, which is exactly what the name says, is a hub, a place where the various stakeholders can collaborate to look at the processes, to comment them, to change them, etc. These 3 things in a, let's say, stripped down version are a part of the SAP for Rise accelerator pack. Process Insights with a one-time data load. So the full-blown version has a constant data update. In the starter pack edition, it's a one-time data load so that you can start your discussion. Process Manager, which is the modeling tool and the tool where you upload the best practices with 3 users, and the Collaboration Hub with 10 users. Now, in all honesty, this is something that gives you a flavor of what SAP Signavio can do. In your real project, you will have, of course, more than 3 people modeling and more than 10 people interacting. But for the project team, this is an immense support to get the whole thing started and to bring the discussion into a real transformation discussion and not only a lift and shift discussion.
So if we're looking at that then, and the customers on the journey and obviously going the Rise with SAP route, it's a great start and gives you initial insights, but really a customer would need to maybe upgrade, if you like, to get the most out of it, to maximize the effect of Signavio on the journey?
Absolutely, yeah. So you will then, if you then continue of the bigger picture of Signavio, as I said before, beyond the starter pack Process Insights, which is this plug-and-play analysis solution, if you then go for a full license, you will get daily updates. Yeah, so you will continuously be able to monitor your progress that you make towards preparing yourself, but also Process Insights also works on S4. So afterwards, once you are on S4, you can continue. Yeah. Secondly, the components which we did not talk about, Process Intelligence, which is the process mining solution of SAP Signavio, which is relevant in your transformation in 2 ways. Number one, you can analyze non-SAP systems with Process Intelligence. Yeah. So for your processes which run through non-SAP systems, you will then have the end-to-end visibility and understanding. Besides then the Process Manager, which is the process modeling tool, yeah, you can take the processes which have been analyzed in Process Intelligence, so the process flows, the real process flows, with all the variants, and you can say, variant 1, 3, and 5, this should become my future best practice. Yeah? And then warehouse number 1, this is how warehouse number 1 works in our previous example. Yeah? You create a process model out of this in Process Manager. This is where you do the modeling. And then you go to the 9 other warehouses, yeah, and you discuss with the stakeholders in these 9 other warehouses by looking at these process models and the performance indicators. For this collaboration and discussion, you will need to have the Collaboration Hub, yeah, which is also part of the starter pack. However, then you will want to document all the decisions. Yeah, you will have workflows for these decisions. We are going to change process. Who needs to see this? Who needs to approve this? How are we documenting this? Typically in Outlook or in Excel. But here, through the process governance piece of SAP Signavio, you will have all that documentation in one area. And some of the processes you will decide also to automate, maybe by using automation capabilities which are not part of S/4HANA anyway. Yeah. And this is where there's although SAP automation is not part of the Signavio portfolio, it's very, very strongly connected because that's a natural extension, if you like. The last thing that I did not mention is the journey modeler of SAP Signavio, which is, if you then say, in the context of my S4 transformation, I also want to change my processes, and wouldn't it be a brilliant idea if I started from my customer? Yeah? And if I start by understanding how my customer is experiencing the exchange with me, and where does he or she have a good experience or a bad experience, and then change accordingly. This is where you would have the journey modeling capabilities or also journey to process analytics capabilities of SAP Signavio.
Thank you. So obviously from what you're saying, there's a hell of a lot in there. And I suppose looking to the future, are there any future updates planned that you can share with us that would perhaps bring even more functionality for customers that SAP is planning?
Absolutely, yes. So there's the following that we have on our plate planning for the future. Number one is, let me start with Process Insights, which is this plug-and-play solution, which today runs on ECC and S4. The next one to come will be Ariba. Yeah? So that's the one thing. The second major thing in terms of content is that early next year, we will go live. We will have general availability of the so-called OPAL, One Process Acceleration Layer. OPAL is the platform where, on the one side, all the content is available, the best practices, the process content from SAP, but also the accelerators, how to quickly get connected and extract the data, as well as the benchmarks, the process performance indicators, etc. With all the content that goes with it, integrated into SAP Signavio at your fingertips, so to say, for your project. This is what comes in the beginning of next year. And thirdly, we already announced it, and we are now piloting this journey to process and journey to process analytics. So think in terms of faster time to insight. How are our customers perceiving the interaction with us? And if they are satisfied or dissatisfied, why? And how is it connected to the underlying processes? As well as, how do I change this? How do I validate my hypothesis that what I believe needs to be changed will have an impact on the customer? I would like to validate this before I start changing my entire organization. So this is what's also coming, both the analytics capabilities and the methodology of how to validate and get the change into your organization.
Thank you. So lots coming down the line as well, and thank you. I appreciate that. So from where can customers and organizations go to find more information about SAP Signavio?
www.signavio.com. Yeah, so that's the one thing. So one obvious way of going there is the Signavio.com website. There you will not only find information about all the products, references, documentation, white papers, etc., etc. But also you have the possibility to contact or being contacted and then start your discussion from there. The second recommendation I have is, of course, your SAP contact person, your account executive, your Max Attention, TQM, if you are on Max Attention, or your support advisor. And the third one are our partners, right? So both specialized business process management partners as well as the bigger system integrators. All of them are now starting to build up the Signavio practices or to use their business process management or SAP practices, and they're baking Signavio into their methodology. Yeah? So I would start with Signavio.com, or again via your regular SAP contact or via your partner.
Thank you. And, I mentioned our annual conference, you guys have connected earlier, and I know you're coming over to sit down and talk to our executives in our executive forum about Signavio and take their questions on that. And we have a number of sessions also running through the program. Plus, we'll have webinars available if anybody's interested. So, Signavio.com. sapusers.org, 2 sites for you to try there. So, Wassilios, as we come to the close now, is there anything else you feel we haven't covered that you would like to add in before we close?
So, besides the fact that I'm very much looking forward to seeing you and also our customers in Birmingham, and by the way, there is also a stand of SAP Signavio. So please come and visit us there, as well as three sessions that we will have. One about successful business transformation on Monday, one about how SAP did its own transformation with Signavio on Tuesday, and one of the wisdom of the crowd also on Tuesday. My recommendation, so to say, is the following. Yeah, don't think of S4 as a pure IT project. Take the momentum to question the way you're working today, and think about how can you make best use of S/4HANA capabilities in order to run your processes better and make your customers more satisfied. And in order to do this, use the SAP Signavio functionality and content in order to do your analysis, get the faster time to insight, and your successful change, faster time to adopt. These are my 3 cents.
Thank you. And Wassilios, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. I hope you got value from our conversation. And again, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.